I was born November 7th, 1935, in the Ortonville Hospital, at least I'm told. And then it was winter, and so I think we lived on a farm east of Rosen at that time. So I was the second one in the family. I always didn't really like my name because it's so odd, but it came from my mother's doctor, and his wife's name was Velma. Then we moved into a house in by Rosen, west of Rosen, and it was just a very small house. My dad's had the best dairy barn in 3 counties, 3 states maybe. Some guy had built that, some relative kind of, and the very best one all around, big dairy barn. But the house was just a cracker box, a small square cracker box, which was meant for a shed or something and they intended to build a new house, but the guy must have ran out of money or whatever, and so that never got done. But anyway, we lived in there, so when we lived in there, there was already one, two, Yvonne, me, Kay, Wander, twins were born there, Aben, I think maybe even Sharon, and it was very, very small. Gerard, who lives there now, said he couldn't imagine how we ever lived in there. But then when my dad's mother died, I never knew my grandparents at all, or grandpas at all. But I knew very little. I was really young when I saw my grandma Adelman. And she lived with one son in Rosen in a house. It was a nice big house in Rosen. So when the son, she died, then the son moved out to a farm. Vince moved out to East Rosen and had a family there. And so we got to have this nice big house that even had electricity at that time because, in the 40s there wasn't even, and the rural one didn't have any.
Yeah.
Well, then some old couple that were going to retire Schmiegs bought this house, and it was right in Rosen, right near the school, and the nuns had a house in between, so I'm sure everybody in Rosen knew all these Heidelman kids real well. So then then they bought this place, so my dad had to find another place that he was just renting at the time. So anyway, the only place available that he could find then was over in South Dakota, which Rosen people are cloistered. I mean, everybody's related. Nobody at that time, nobody ventured out very far. So, so my dad found this place, grand place, over the hills into South Dakota, which they acted like we were moving out to another country. But anyway, we went from the nicest dairy barn ever to the poorest old shaggy dairy barn. But we made a living there, and that's where the other kids in the family, a total of 12, were born when we lived out in that country. And then I went to the the parochial school in Rosen, all of my 8 grades from first to 8. The Benedictine nuns were teaching there, and so we had to go drive over. My mother was busy, and she never drove the car anyway, so my dad had to pick up the Rademachers on the way, which was 2 other families that we were packed in like sardines, but he always drove to Rosen to school, and then the Rademachers took turns, and they'd take turns bringing us back because they had to come further back. And so I went, all 8 grades there. Took 1 year of music lessons by one of the nuns. So I learned how to play the right hand on the piano at least. Of course, then we had to make our own fun. I remember walking on barrels. I had a good posture at the time. These fuel barrels that like 25 gallon, 30, whatever they were. I had pretty good posture, and we used to do that. And because we were poor, we didn't have anything, so we had to make our own. My mother's from the Nassau Bellingham area, pretty much, towards Madison on the farm, and my dad's family was from the Rosen area. And I don't know, I think they met somewhere. Well, this Vernon Hall we used to have here used to be the big place that a lot of people around here, they'd go to dances and stuff. And somebody said Lawrence Welk even played there, but I don't know if that's true or not. Now, then there's 12 kids in our family. Should I name him Levon, Shoki, and then it was me, then it was Kay and Wanda were twins, and then Adrian, and then Sharon, Donna, Carol, Dale, Kenny, Beverly. Shy as heck. We'd usually, when somebody would come, us girls, we'd just, because we, us three, usually were together, and we'd go hide behind the house and peek around the corner. We didn't get pictures of that. Oh, yeah, I was shy, so shy. I remember even till I had my third, fourth kid, I think my own, I'd go to the clinic, I wouldn't hardly even talk to anybody yet. But after that, I woke up. But my best friend was Doreen Stride, Carl's now. And we were like two peas in a pod all the way from first grade to Rose in 8 years and 4 years in high school together and still friends. And some of them say, I think we giggled all the way through high school, but whatever. We did. We just have to look at each other, and we were laughing even in church. It was terrible. Well, when I was young, even like 10, 12 years old, the neighbors would get us for babysitting because they figured, well, okay, she's got, 10 kids younger than her, and then even when it came along, that, they know how to take care of kids because they had all these babies behind them. So I did a lot of babysitting there for like 50 cents a night. Or if you really got $1 if you're really doing something, and then helping out other mothers when they had their babies. And then I worked in the Millbank Hospital during the summertime as a nurse's aide, type thing. And I was just out of high school. Then one summer I went to the cities and worked in an insurance company in office. But then I didn't want to stay there alone after Wanda went back to, because I didn't want to stay in cities alone. So then we didn't dare date until we were 16, which was fine. I mean, we never dared to, and we didn't even try. We did walk across, I think one time, me and my friends, we were so desperate to go to a Friday night dance in Nassau that we walked the railroad from Bellingham to Nassau. We didn't really get in trouble for it or anything, and I can't really say I don't remember being hit or anything. I mean, I think it was pretty good. Then I was dating Raymond, and he had to leave for the Army. His older brother was in the Army yet, and so when his name, in Grand County, they had all these listed, everybody's names after they were 18, all the men had to sign up, and so they just drafted them because the Korean War was on. And so he had to, then he could wait until his brother, Jim, was home, and then he had to go. Well, that was right when I was a senior, and so what he thought, well, he didn't want me going with anybody else, and he had to go basic training, and that was in May. And yeah, and then I graduation. So for graduation, before I even left, he gave me a diamond ring because he didn't want me to go with anybody else. He figured that shut everything off, which I had a chance, but I didn't. So then the war ended in July that year, so then he never had to go overseas. But then we got married in October of '54. I was 18, but almost 19, just a few weeks from that. But I didn't have any choice of the dates. I kind of wanted to wait till I was 19, 20, but he had a furlough or time off that he could get, and it was that week. And so that was the week we got married. People they didn't even have all their beans combined yet. It was October 16th. I remember a lot of them came to the wedding, but didn't want to. And we honeymooned in Black Hills, and then we had to go back to Fort Riley, Kansas, where he was stationed. Then there was a town called Junction City nearby, kind of a crappy old town. But anyway, then he had a friend there, Bart, just from South Dakota, Don and Betty, that were another couple. So then they kind of helped us find a place, quick for us to live in, because if you were single, you had to live on base, in the barracks. But if you're married, you could live off base. And we had a '49 Ford, I think, that he had gotten from his brothers. So back and forth from Kansas that winter, we got snowed in once at the Barcher's place, and I remember that real plain. But then Betty had kind of found a job at Duckwall's, which is like Alco Duckwall's company. So that's where I worked then when I was down there. Yeah, then being the war ended, then if they had over a year left, then they would be, their unit, their division was going to change from the 1st to the 10th from Germany. So if you had more than a year left, then he had to go to Germany. But he had less than a year left, and if you had 6 months or more left, then you Colorado, I think, and his was less than that. And a couple other guys from the area, one from Bellingham, one from Millbank, I think they stayed in the full time. But if you had a seasonal job like working on the roads or farming, you could get a special. We had to come home to get his dad to sign it that he'd be a farmer. So then he got out, I think it was in March sometime, so that you could. So it was called an early release, about 130 days or whatever it was. And then supposedly you had a job, you didn't get your mustering out pay, and they called that was like about $125 or something, which wasn't that big a deal. I think they only got like $75 a month ordinarily, but I think when they're married they got like 125. But so then we moved here, and then we moved over here where Foxes live. That's where he lived at first. David was born there, and then these older people, Ebsons, they never had any kids, and they were kind of different. But then they moved, and that's when we moved over there. No, the house that was there, they were kind of different. There was one part, and then they added another part on. They brought it from somewhere, and then they added another small part on. So it was really kind of dumb. There was a little porch in the kitchen, and the trap door was to go in the basement. It's just a dirt floor, rock walls down there. I remember that. And so then there was another part, and then there was a great big room that we used for a bedroom, but I think most of the older kids were all in there. And then there was a dining room, and then a living room, kind of, and then another bedroom. And there wasn't upstairs, but it was never finished. That was really icky. And so then there was a part in the other side where I used for a washroom, to have my washer and dryer, and then the bathroom, because there was no running water, and we had to get the water from the well. When I was young too, we did. It was good well water, but and then the year Sandy was born is when we built the house that you have. That's on there now. Actually, my dad died when he was 63 years old. He wasn't quite 64, but it was in 1964, so it was early of that year that we moved in.
Okay.
Because I remember her being baptized yet in the old one. Okay. Well, my sister, well, he had two sisters that were married already to Rosen people, one Carlson, one Rademacher, which we were all familiar with and friends with them. And then Alice, his sister, was kind of my age, and so kind of chumming around with her, and he was looking at me and hanging around, and so then kind of in groups, and pretty soon, and then they'd go to the NASA dances too. He never really danced much, and never was good at dancing, but anyway, they went there, and that's kind of more or less where we went. And then my sister was teaching in the country school there, where his little sisters were, and so excuses to get around. So then, two boys and 5 girls. I wouldn't do anything much different, I don't think, ever. The school was first David went to the little country school that was still going, and then when the school burned down or rebuilt or whatever, then they built that new school. So, and I did go to a lot of the school things and helped chaperone, which was really experience. I remember going to Rapid City to State Bees once, and so would Chuck remember that. And it was the buses, and then there was in the same section where we lived, we had 7 kids. The Schulkes had 8 kids, Bramers had 8 kids, and I think Roggenbucks had 8 maybe. Anyway, the bus could, fill up in a few minutes' time and take them back, but they had to split them so that they couldn't all go in the same bus same time, because that wasn't fair. Then our bus would be way too short, the route. So our kids chummed back and forth with them, and with the Schulkes, we went to NASA Church, St. James, same time, and back and forth, and they liked their horses. I know we had one horse that was a stubborn prince. Um, that one time he went over to showcase, and that I think Jeff got on him, and that horse, I saw it come down the road through the window, and I thought, oh my God, nobody's going to be alive out of that. But they did. But Joan and Sandy were the horse women. I mean, they just had to have their horses. And then Kaufman's, our friends, were going to move off the farm, and they had one older horse, and so they brought that one over. But as far as the boys go, David and Chuck like their horses under the hood. Like David's Roadrunner, and Chuck's on the motorcycle. I mean, that's what they like. The girls had to work in the house and stuff, and of course there were plenty of arguments whose turn it is to do that. And that was kind of like when, I think that was the most, when I was growing up, I think that was the only thing. It was whose turn was to wash dishes, whose turn was to wipe dishes. But otherwise, we just got along really pretty darn good, really. On their names, I guess I always liked the name David and Douglas, and I kind of intended maybe for Douglas. I don't know why, because I do like the name David better, but Douglas. And Alice had told me, great sister Alice, when she was going to have, she thought she's going to have kids, so she said, I'm going to take the name Douglas. And I thought, you can't have it, so I thought, okay. So then it got to be David. That was the other two names that she had picked out. And Jones, I can't remember just how. I just thought, well, we got a long last name, so a short first name would be working good. And for Deb too, the same thing, Deborah, and then Cheryl, and then Susan, and then Chuck. And we call him Chuck, but his real name was Charles. And actually, and then Sandy. Charles was actually there was twins born in my family towards the end of the bunch, and they were real premature, and they died, and they were named Charles and Charlotte, so I always kind of liked that name. I think, I'm basically really proud of my kids. I think they just all doing pretty well. I've got the best grandchildren in the whole world, and I've been told that by different other people, not siblings, friends that say, oh yeah, you're so lucky because you got such nice, good-looking grandchildren and stuff. And I thought, I even got more view. Now I got more sweeter, cuter great-grandchildren. And not everybody's blessed with that. Some don't even live long enough to see their grandchildren. And then some of our friends, one of them, they didn't have any kids at all. And so, yeah, I did like to, my motto was, well, my mother liked to travel when she was older because she was single and widowed young, too, and I kind of got the fever. And the very first time I went on an airplane was when Johnson's and Magadanson, these two bachelors, and we went to Vegas. They said, oh yeah, you can get away from your kids. David is old enough to do chores. I think he might have been out of school yet, and so they said, I'll help you get going on the plane and everything there. So we did that. Flew to Las Vegas, and that was a real experience because us farmers were dumb down there. We didn't realize how much you had to tip them or what. But we didn't do much gambling. We've been driving around, mostly touring Hoover Dam and all that stuff. And then another time, well, one kind of special time would be that I went to Hawaii when Paul was stationed there. That was really the longest trip ever, and that's long to go over there. But I'd love to go back there if it wasn't such a long trip. And then I went to bus trips. Me and Farmers Union once, me and Shirley Weber would get through, and we'd do some silly, crazy things. Like dressing up like Arabians out there, in D.C., and we shouldn't have done that. And see, we did, those bus trips, and then I've been to Austin, Texas to see my uncle, brother Severius down there, my dad's youngest one. And he was at St. Edward's University, and he, I know I'm his favorite, was his favorite niece and nephew. The one that went down there, I suppose I've been to Texas about 14 times, because then the siblings, like, they all wanted to go too then after that, and then one would say, one year we'd go with one bunch, and so one time Susan and Dustin went, we drove down with the old Bravada, and that was probably the closest time I ever was to an accident, was driving back from there, Oklahoma City. I thought we'd getting out of there, and then there was a box truck, and I thought, well, before we get way out, there were still poles and stuff, and divided highway. So I thought, may as well pass them now. Like I said, my motto was, I want to see some of this earth before they shovel it over me. Sometimes, I'll drive a little fast, but anyway, because I couldn't see around him. So he was just about going and stopping, and so I go around him. And then I thought, oh my gosh, he knew what was going on evidently, and I went in front of him, and then I had to go to the yield to get out. In a way, just zip, 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 because there was an accident up ahead, and they had the light pole from the median had broke off, and then when I got around that, because I had to go way around there, then I found out what it was. Then I knew why the truck was gone. So we were lucky, because I had almost thought of going over it, because I saw it across the road ahead, aluminum, like that, and I thought of, trying to just go over it, because I was speeding up to go. And to this day, I think if I would have tried that, I would have flipped. And I think, like my mom, I got her dark brown, black eyes. Kind of raised my family probably the same way, and kind of. And my mom was taller than my dad. My dad was more short and stocky. I mean, like me. That's why I thought I would be more of a heart attack, because he died young of a heart attack. It was a drought year, and we were always really poor anyway. But otherwise, I think kind of maybe probably more like my dad. Well, I don't know. I think some of each. I can kind of tell that. He usually never would say that to any of them, but I can tell which ones, because every other one is darker complected, every other one is lighter complected. So, like the oldest David, and then Deb, and then Susan, everybody says look more like me anyway, they can see that. And then the other ones are more the Wollschlager, like Joan, Cheryl, and Chuck, and Sandy's kind of a mix of them all, but probably more Wollschlager side. Tendencies to be that
kind of
like them, yeah, like that. I gotta say, well, I think I was a really pretty patient person, most of my life. I just said, you can push me way to the end of the cliff, but don't try to push me off. Then I might come alive. I think way back, probably like the Korean War. And then when we were in Kansas, I think Eisenhower we saw him because he was candidate for president. Actually, I don't remember if he even made it, but when President John F. Kennedy died, that just stunned the whole country. Of course, 9/11 was the big thing. Those are probably the biggest things. And also that, and now I, am really believing you can see where the Muslims want to come in and take over their drive is to take over the world, because they don't, they're anti-Christian. And I'm a real believer that Christianity should prevail, and hopefully it does. Well, I wish good health for all my family and siblings, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And another thing is for them to keep the Christian faith. I think that's just extremely important. And for the United States to be the good country that it had been. Well,
Uh,
yeah, I guess that my friends have said, you did a good job of raising your family, and you're, and I know I'm very blessed. Traveling. Yeah, I like to go. I've been around, I've been to Denver. I've been to quite a few states, and we flew to Florida with friends a couple different times, and Washington, D.C., and been to Texas. I like middle part of Texas. Um, and other than that, I don't know just what, if I had real particular hobbies. Um, yeah, I'll go whenever I could. I I must say I got almost more self-educated um, by reading and listening and learning and being with people and hearing things, um, hearing about medical things. I mean, I think I've really grown in my faith and in my knowledge through the years.
okay.
Mainly Chuck and David, they're the closest here. Um, and then the other girls too, I would say. Um, and then I've got some good neighbors too, so that uh, probably around 65, because it's getting to be more freedom then, with, boys are helping farming, and of course we're selling seed on the side, and you have your family raised, so you don't have to feel bad about getting out and about and going. Um, and yet you're not old enough to have start having things wrong with your body.
That's a good answer.
I think like the 50s and 60s when I had my family, and things were going really pretty good financially. I mean, at least we could keep up with things. Um, and I think it was kind of a good age where the country was stable, so you felt safe. Um, and I would think then, yeah, even into the 70s, then it got to be Vietnam War and all the things with that. That was a terrible, terrible war. I would say just being born and getting married and having the children is really a big thing. Um, and grandchildren and great grandchildren are just the best. I just, wouldn't want anything different anymore.
Yeah. Um,
I really think I wish I could capsule everything that I've learned in 80 years and put that into the kids or the grandkids, so we could just pass that down so they could just take off from there and keep on learning. I've often thought, oh, that would be a nice thing to do. Because they all have to learn through, they have to go through this whole thing and learn all that and go to school and learn everything. Oh boy, world peace. For people to just live in each in their own places and be happy and be satisfied and make a good living, be happy where they are. I think, and to have faith and earn a reward for heaven would be the. Hmm. I guess I'd like to remember me as I am, or that I tried hard to be a good person, example, um, and a very faith-filled person, um, and like to have fun lots of times. Besides, gotta have that. Get the norm. I would say always just be a good person, no matter what. There's going to be trials. It's always been and always will be. Um, work through them. Um, be good to everybody. Stay strong. Stay Christianity faith filled. Um, stay healthy as you possibly can. Um, and be happy and choose a vocation that you really like and stay with it. Well, not really, except that I worried a lot when they were gone away from home. I made the rule too that they were supposed to date until they're 16, but I know some snuck away. And this and my girls, we lots of times these other neighbors wouldn't have cars for their kids, and we'd have a car for ours because we'd have to drive to school sports and all this. So they'd all jump rides, one with, and they could get in trouble. And I just thought, I got the responsibility. So I laid awake many nights until I heard. I said, you always have to check in when they're coming home. And well, nobody else has to do that, the other ones, mom don't say, well. And sometimes those girls, and I've gone to 1 o'clock in the morning or two, drove to Bellingham or drove to Clear Lake, Revilla, or wherever, and you only have to do that once usually with each kid because they are too embarrassed after that, but it helped them in a way because then the next time they could tell they were out running around yet and they were supposed to bring them back home, so responsible for them. And so they, had the courage then to tell them, well, my mom, she will come out and find us, if you don't come, and I got to be home at, and yep, and not all the mothers and parents were that strict and did that, if they came home, they said, well, we don't have, so and so, they didn't ever have to tell their mom when they come home, but yeah, I did. And we had some guys from Bellingham or Madison. They used to come for the girls at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and come in. One of them lost his mother young, and so he was having problems. And he'd sit there, till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in the kitchen table. We'd be talking to him. I'd kind of have to, and then of course then Dad would say, well, geez, you're never going to get any sleep, that way. Can't just kick them out. And I thought, well, they need to talk to somebody, and so sometimes it got pretty late, but. Yeah, they had to check in. They had to tell that me when they're home, no matter what time it was. And when the boys had motorcycles, they wasn't worried. Well, girls in the cars were worried too, but until I see the whites of their eyes, I wouldn't sleep. But he was a hard-working man, and he did things the hard way, and then conservative. So. Until we got to really get halfway established. So we struggled just like the rest of them did, but there was some good years where we did okay, and so, and putting up the house, either the one over there or here, if a marriage can handle that, then it stays together.
That's true.
But because it's a struggle, financially and what you want and what you can do, and then you always find out things that we should have done different afterward. But they say everybody goes through that when they're building anything. So, oh, he wasn't a real. But he'd always say, well, what do you want for Christmas, or what do you want for this or that, and there was nothing that I ever really pressed for, but. Then it just got so that he thought, oh, just get whatever you want anyway, just give me the money. I'll never forget that. Yeah, she was I think 3 weeks overdue, and we went to Watertown, Sandy, and you, Kelsey, and Aaron, just little bitsy girls, and I can't remember which car we had, but we were in Watertown, and she was going to buy something because for their anniversary, mother and dad's anniversary is coming up. And this was like in October, and so we went to Watertown. The little girls and Sandy were in the back, and Tammy was in front, and I was driving, and this was the 17th of October, so really we don't have snow then. But it started snowing, and before we left town, because I knew she was overdue already, I said, well, any labor pains or anything going on? Nobody said a word, not a word. Neither Sandy didn't either. And so here we go out east of Watertown in 212, and it's snowing, and it's snowing, and it's getting heavier, and it's getting heavier. And for a car, I mean, I don't even know if it's front wheel drive, to get that, and well, we had to go to Strandberg to pick up something that from Tammy's mother's, so we had to go on this road, the Strandberg Road. So here I go, trudging along. Pretty soon we come to this one area, and the car started skidding sideways because the snow was like 4 or 5 inches deep. I mean, it was not good. Shouldn't have been out there. And so I slid into the ditch onto the west side, and kind of below, the east side was low. And so when I knew I could feel it going, I grabbed back at Tammy, just about pushed that baby through her back. And so, hold on. So here we were in the ditch, and it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So Sandy says, "Okay, Mom, I'm going to get out, and I'm going to push you out." And I said, "What do you think, you are, a bionic woman or something?" "I'm going to," she said. "You have to." And I thought, "No, we'll wait for a pickup. That's going to be closing. People can get off work. We're just going to wait here for a pickup to come by or somebody to help us out." "Nope." She said she's having pains. I thought, oh my God. Nobody said a word going out of town. I asked. It was silence. So we're in the ditch. Sandy gets out and says, "Have your window open, and when I say go, then she's going to push and back up on the road." Tammy was quiet, perfectly quiet. And as we were going to, the little girls didn't say a thing back. They were in their car seats, you and Aaron, just quiet as could be, listening to this, evidently. And so Sandy says, "Okay, I'm going to go, and I'm going to get it." And right before that, I hear Aaron say, "Kelsey, hang on." You can barely talk to little girls at that time. And out of the real quiet, "Kelsey, hang on." So Sandy says, "Okay, we're going to do it." Well, she did push me out, and I thought, oh, thank God, we didn't go on the other side. So then we went on, and we made it over to the Swenson farm, and Tammy did her thing there, and then called Chuck. We didn't have cell phones at the time, so we called Chuck to tell him that we were going to be coming. And I said, "Well, maybe he can come up here, and take you from here." "Nope, I'm going to go and get my clothes and stuff." She says, I got to, Chuck's going to take me out. Oh my gosh. So we go down this Highway 20 hills, and I thought, oh, good thing I got to the 8 Mile corner, and here comes the sheriff from the north. And I thought, oh, this will be good because, if we had delivered this baby, I thought, I'm not. So I thought, that's good, maybe. Well, he turns in front of me and goes on our road here, 158. And I thought, what's he doing out there anyway? Well, then right across from Dave's place, this lady had hit a pole, and he was out there investigating that. So we get home, thank God. And then we had this little pickup, but it had a CB radio in it. A little, I don't know, what was it, Dodge or something, the red and white one. And so they take the pickup to go to the house, back up to the hospital. And we could follow them on the CB from our base way as far as Goodwin, I think. And then after that, I thought, well, there'll be somebody coming on 212 or somebody. They'll get some help or something if anything happens. And then we went to Watertown, and that big boy, Jordan, then her pains quit. Chuck, I think they went to eat something. They didn't want to check in before 12 because then it cost another day. So, I don't know, her pains must have let up, and so then they waited till after 12 and went in. And I think he wasn't even born till 11 o'clock the next day, that big boy.
He was stubborn.
So, yeah, he wasn't ready for this world. He wanted his own place.
Yeah.
Boy, but that was a stressful night. Being Susan was living alone with them in Millbank, I helped out a lot with them, almost like their second mother, and they do appreciate it, and they know that. And same with Jessie and Cody too. They thought, that when I helped out, and Deb was living before she got married again. Yeah, and so that's kind of when I got involved in sports almost more than when I didn't have too much time to go. Of course, Dad didn't have much time to go to the boys' games, when even track meets or anything. At that time, farming, people just didn't do that. They just were busy working. Nowadays, it's nice when the dads and everybody can go, but Um, but that's when I kind of learned more about sports, going to their stuff, and when Travis was in college, then I went up to Valley City with Susan a number of times. One time he had a concussion too, and so um, then McCulloch was the coach says, okay, who are you staying with? And he says, well, nobody is staying in my room because the kid that was there quit. He was from Bismarck or somewhere. And he says, well, somebody will be with you tonight. And I thought, well, and Cole Ottoman wanted to go along really bad that time, and I think he was there. But then I said, well, we'll stay at a Super 8 there, and then we can just watch him overnight, and somebody be there. No, I didn't want to do that, and we had to get back, um, so yeah, that, but even all the kids' events, grandkids' events, I was free to go then, and whatever it was plays, or if it was a homecoming thing or whatever, and Grand Duel, knew that place pretty well, and after a while, Millbank. So got to know a lot of the schools. I chaperoned once when Sandy's drill team went out to Rapid City, and everything they say about state bees is true. Because we were in a place when we had a teacher and another younger teacher lady too with us, and we had 3 cars, and Mrs. Ward, Mrs. What's her name now? She's old now, but anyway, we each had cars, and we had the pom-poms sticking in the back windows and packed in because we had everything in. And we had rooms there, and there was a horseshoe kind of a motel, and Redfield and different other schools were there. And so I'll never forget it. Chuck and Les Peterson, I think, or was it Terry Osmond, were there too, and they had that old 49, or that old Ford, blue Ford. But anyway, then these kids were fighting each other, and it was a horseshoe thing. So even some of the Redfield ones were throwing their furniture out and everything. It was bad. But we had like 3 rooms. And even on the way down, one of the little girls, or the girls that had my car, she said, we stopped in the Badlands because some of them hadn't seen it. So we were out there walking around, and there was a couple young guys out there. They were traveling through or whatever. And we didn't know it right away, but these girls told them what motel we were going to be in. And I thought, oh my gosh. So then each of us teachers, or me and the other teachers, each took a bunch of girls each in the room, so we wouldn't let those girls be there together, because we were afraid that these guys were going to come. Well, that didn't happen, but the kids got back and forth. They were arguing and fighting and drinking. Well, then at that time a van was quite something, and so down from, and I was on the 2nd level, down from the corner room there, somebody, one of the other kids evidently got their vehicle from home or something and bumped into another one. And so I thought, well, somebody's going to be mad about that, So I went, and they didn't have phones in all the rooms, or they didn't work until, or there was a certain hours in the day that the phones worked. So I told them down at the office, what happened. Well, then they found out that there was somebody in our group that squealed, so they were mad at us anyway. But then there was boys fighting on the steps, and one time I thought, I'm just going to walk right through them, because then they got to quit. And I walked right through them, but I just about got punched. And so, yeah, that was it. And then I got to stop because I made a right turn on a red, and I wasn't supposed to do that. A cop stopped me, and he says, we're in town, in a big town, you have to. There was nobody coming, but he said, you have to. You can't make a right on a red here. Okay? But, yeah, they did good at the cheering event. And I cheered one time. I mean, I did cheer. I chaperoned one time, and a bunch of these girls went to the cities too. And then we stayed in, I don't know, probably wasn't the best part of the cities either. And big glass windows, in front. And these girls, and there was a football team from, I don't know if it was Canada or something, that was in the same hotel. And so a couple of these girls got away on us. And I and this teacher, and she says, you got to help find them. And so here they were. They went out one door towards the swimming pool out in the street, and the other, and they were not supposed to go out in the street whatsoever. So things were. Then we heard that somebody had some liquor in their suitcase, and all these stories and stuff, and so then Mrs. Crane was, she was giving heck to some of them girls and trying to, and they were not listening to her, and they were just giving her a bad time. So she called me over and she said, "You come and talk to these girls." Well, I know the girls real well, and some of them were in our neighborhood. So I went in there and I talked to them. I said, "Well, you know, you're not supposed to be doing this, you're not supposed to be doing that, and you know, we heard that you got liquor, and you know who it is." But anyway, I said to her, "Okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning," but I said, "I'll call your mother. You know, I'm not afraid." And they knew I would do it too because we were friends, and I said, "I'll call your mother. You know, I'll call your parents and tell them, you know, they'll have to come and get you because that's the rule." Well, that's all I had to say, and then she was into tears, and that was all. Mrs. Crane, the teacher, said, how did you get it settled?" And I said, "I just said I will." I know probably wouldn't have, but they didn't know because they know I've gone back and picked up or gone checking on my kids at night, so they knew. But it is that parents really worry, especially a mother, you know, wondering if they're safe and who they're with, and so those days are behind me. They're coming up for you. He was such a shy kid, and he went to school in Watertown, the Catholic school there, and then after a while he went to Clear Lake when they lived in Clear Lake, and he was so quiet then because I remember the shop teacher, I knew him, and he says, "Yeah, I think he said all the 5 words last year." And you kids, you know, was close by, so I saw, you know, got to see a lot more of them. And, yeah, that's fun. I enjoyed that. I just, you know, I had, if I had kids around, boy, that was just my pride and joy. Just my, and then like you 3 girls, you know, you and Laura and Kelsey, you know, and I think I remember taking you to the pageant at D. Smith at the time. We stayed at a motel. Elise was younger, so she was, I don't think she was there, but and Valerie was older, so she was already gone or whatever. Just, you know, always, anybody in the future, just take care of your health, take care of your faith, do whatever good job you can. Do, I know you all be good raising your own families because you've all had a good background, which is really important, I think. And I'm so happy for that because, and we haven't had any real serious illnesses or accidents so far in our, everybody, you know, my other friends say, you know, you really have been blessed. I know my mother would even say that. She says her kids, you know, she always thought, but now they have some of them that have health problems and stuff with her grandkids. But so far, you know, I'm just really happy about that. And Laura close by, you know, I see her, lots of her, and I'm so happy to see all these little grandchildren, great grandchildren being taken care of by these kids. I think it's just awesome. I just think it's just awesome. I know they're not all married, and I'm sure there's going to be more greats coming up. But, and I wish I could hang around a couple of years to see it, but I don't know what's ahead. But I guess it's up to the Almighty now. So I'll have to do whatever I can to. But I, you know, I'd sure love to. I sure have enjoyed my years. Future, I really would like to make sure that you all keep a good, strong faith. It's important, and also stay involved in the nations and local, even in politics. And I fear a Muslim takeover, which would be anti-Christian, and that, you know, that they just don't have the respect for life, and they don't to treat the little girls. And I mean the awful things that happen scare me. I worry about the future. I really hope and pray that we get people that will keep morals in this country, because I think it's really lost in the last years. So do whatever you can to keep that going. I hope and pray that my kids all get along with each other, um, that they always get together at times, maybe keep the tradition Christmas or whenever, or at least always stay in touch with each other. I think that's really important. So, and I always hope that they just, and I don't want any factions and fighting among them. I know there's families that break up over things. I hope that everybody can control themselves and be satisfied and happy with what they have and what they will have. I think that's important, and to always respect one another,
Yeah.
because we can't tell each other how to live, where to go, or whatever, but you have to just be accepting and to just stay as a family.
Yeah.
Looking back, I really spent a whole lot of time doing church work, and first started teaching religious ed in the parish of Nassau, and then when we had been directing religious ed because Elaine had moved, and so for 30 years I helped. And then when the parochial school closed in Rosen, then we got to move out of the little cubicles in Nassau and got to have the big school, and so there we had religious ed Wednesday night for the high school, and so the religious ed for elementary on Saturday mornings, and so I did that many years, and probably not got a lot of credit for it, but anyway, then when my family's kids started getting married and having grandkids and that, I kind of wanted to spend more time, so when we changed to so then I finally got somebody to take over, and so I put in a lot of years of being the parish worker in Nassau in my state, getting organist and everything. So a lot of miles traveling to Rosen and to Nassau. And then, so let's see, I didn't really teach as many. I started the first grade, but Sandy was just born. So the first year I was pregnant, so priest let me by, and I didn't say no to the priest when they told you to do this and that. So then 2 years, that's why I had 1 or 2 years of first grade. And then after that, I was directing the whole program.
Oh, so you kind of coordinated everything and put it all together.
Yeah, a vigilance coordinator. And then there wasn't even room in NASA for a desk or anything. And we had the high school kids, Kenny and Dorothy Stoik, had seniors out there, and so we only had room for these little tiny cubicles, which the fire department should never let us have 80 kids in that little place. But anyway, when you got to Rosen, it was a lot better because we had big classrooms and stuff. And so then after that, and we always had Mass only on Saturday night because we were on priests, so we were coming to Millbank half the time anyway because we liked to go things on Saturdays and weddings, parties, whatever. And then so we were coming to Millbank half the time anyway, and so then when they were going to have another change of priest back, and I thought, no, I called Cheryl Rademacher and I told her, I think we're coming, it's our time, we better pay our dues there and go to St. Lawrence, which we really liked. There was more people, and we liked to go to the 10:45 so we can go out and eat dinner after that and associate with people. And so that was a lot better for us. Ray didn't know about it at first, but he really liked it after a while to do that. So then I was in the funeral choir and the St. Lawrence choir for a while. Dale and Steve just kept on me until I do that. Until my thyroid got bad and my voice got gravelly, and so I gave that up. Probably one gentlewoman, especially for any woman's funeral, or girls or anything. And we had a lot of relations, so there was a lot of funerals. Went to many different funerals to know and stuff. So really, both sides of the relation, we had a lot of them. Still now, many of my friends have passed away, and are on. And so many, it's getting kind of big, when is it my turn? So, and I'm ready to go to my happy place, but I'm sure going to miss the little kids, especially those little grapes. They're so precious to me.
Mm.
And I love all 7 of my children, always have, and always tried to treat them fairly. And so I hope that they grow up to be good Christians. And I know that they've raised some good grandkids. I'm so proud of my grandkids and how they're raising their families now. That makes me feel so good. So I can die knowing that. So I just hope they all get involved in this national politics so that we can save our nation and save our country and save our Christianity. And all you kids just keep on just doing what you should be doing. To my families, just as we need food for our body every day, we need to hear the Word of God every week. Because the past 2 years, socialism, communism is sneaking in our great nation. Pray about that and for each other. Always God bless you all till we meet again. I love you all, always have and always will. God be with you and give you strength to fight for Jesus. I relied on him more than you can ever know. Love, Mom, Velma, Grace, so loved by me. Amen.